This is Free Press TV. I'm Michael Patterson. Tonight, our top story. President Trump, President Zelenskyy, and top European leaders met in Washington in a high-stakes push to end Russia's war in Ukraine, from urgent diplomacy to behind-the-scenes phone calls with Vladimir Putin, plus China's quiet watch from the sidelines. We break down what you need to know, with the latest developments just in. Welcome back to Free Press TV. Yesterday's meeting at the White House brought together US President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and 7 European leaders in a bid to align the West on ending Russia's war in Ukraine. The meeting and the talks began privately between Trump and Zelenskyy, then expanded to include leaders from Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Finland, the European Commission, and NATO. Officials described the summit as both a sign of unity and a sign of urgency. Europeans want peace, but they also want to ensure Washington doesn't dominate the process alone. What was discussed, according to Zelenskyy, the talks centered on security guarantees, humanitarian concerns, and weapons agreements. Among the proposals, Ukraine purchasing American weapons through European funding, Ukraine boosting domestic production of drones, some to be purchased by the US, humanitarian safeguards, including pressure on Moscow over abducted Ukrainian children. NATO confirmed that no discussion took place on redrawing Ukrainian territory, but Zelenskyy acknowledged he argued with Trump over maps showing the percentage of Russian-occupied land. Trump's call to Putin. In a dramatic moment, Trump paused the meeting to call Vladimir Putin directly, briefing him on the summit's progress. The call, reportedly coordinated with European leaders, did not include them on the line. A Kremlin aide described the conversation as constructive, with Putin signaling readiness for direct negotiations with Ukraine. Toward a Putin-Zelenskyy meeting, Trump announced he is arranging a face-to-face meeting between Putin and Zelenskyy, with Budapest among the venues under consideration. If that bilateral takes place, Trump himself may join for a trilateral summit. Kremlin officials confirmed Putin's support for such a format, while Zelenskyy said he is open to any meeting that advances peace. The atmosphere. This summit stood in stark contrast to the last Oval Office clash earlier this year. Zelenskyy wore a suit rather than military fatigues, softening the optics, and delivered a personal letter from First Lady Olena Zelenska to Melania Trump, thanking her for advocating on behalf of Ukrainian children abducted by Russia. Trump, in turn, personally delivered a letter from Melania to Vladimir Putin during their Alaska summit last week, urging him to protect the innocence of children, a rare humanitarian angle in an otherwise hardline diplomatic push. OSCE and the long road of monitoring. The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission, which operated in Ukraine from 2014 to 2022, was intended to provide impartial oversight in separatist regions. Their work became globally recognized during the aftermath of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17, when observers secured access for Dutch investigators in what they called the biggest open crime scene in the world. But by the time of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, the mission was forced to withdraw, its warnings ignored. China watching closely while Europe and the US scrambled to close ranks. China is watching from the sidelines. Beijing has positioned itself as neutral but remains aligned with Moscow economically and strategically. Chinese media highlight Trump's personal diplomacy with Putin as a possible wedge between Washington and its European allies. Analysts also note Beijing is evaluating the Ukraine talks with an eye on its own future designs on Taiwan. Latest developments as of August 19, 2025. Security guarantees. Zelenskyy confirmed that written security guarantees will be finalized within 10 days, including a U.S. military aid package worth around $90 billion in air defenses and fighter jets, funded in part by Europe. Diplomatic next steps. Budapest is currently the frontrunner for a possible Putin-Zelenskyy bilateral meeting, which Trump may later join. On the ground, despite diplomacy, Russia continued missile strikes overnight, targeting energy infrastructure in central Ukraine, a reminder of how fragile any progress remains. This is Free Press TV. I'm Michael Patterson. The road to peace in Ukraine may be narrowing, but the world is watching whether these meetings will bring breakthroughs or just another chapter of uncertainty. Stay tuned for more updates as they unfold.